Hello, everyone, and welcome to Blue Mondays, the GLORIO Blogs podcast for talking about your first love and the tender memories that you share with them. I am your host, Zigg, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Aquagaze. Hello, Aqua.
Fellas, is it gay to be in the bath naked together and talk about women?
An interesting philosophical question. We'll discuss that and much more along with G. Hi, G.
You know, first loves are, they're beautiful, they're awkward, you never, they never really quite, they're never quite perfect, even if they seem perfect in the moment. You look back in hindsight and you realize, I was young and foolish, and as you get older, you realize, you develop your tastes, you realize what you truly love, what truly matters and appeals to you.
Yep, I think I see where this is going.
That is why, I look back on my first love, Gundam Wing, with a mix of nostalgia and awkwardness and embarrassment.
I would probably lean mostly towards embarrassment, but sure.
Look, who amongst us has control over the first Gundam that gets put in front of, or gets broadcast domestically in your region?
Gundam Wing has valuable life lessons to teach us about freaking out while you're in control of giant robots and how to treat women. So I think it is extremely relevant to today's episodes. This installment, we are covering episode 35, Astral Apache, and episode 36, Fantasia. This is a pretty odd pair of episodes, I have to say. We sort of climax one plot arc and then sort of hold tread water for a little bit there, I would say.
It's definitely a little bit of climax and denouement here with these two.
Yeah, not in a bad way, but we haven't had two episodes that are thematically quite different from each other for quite some time.
Usually with this podcast, we've had the benefit and privilege of both episodes that we talk about being like loosely thematically connected in some way that we can like force onto it. But here, these episodes really almost couldn't be any more different, at least by like Eureka 7 standards, right? We have one climactic, very action-driven episode, and then there's one episode that is almost like the closest thing this show has gotten to like slice of lifey, quote unquote, filler since the early days.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I would push back against that because I actually do think, like, in many ways, I would almost argue both of these episodes are quite important.
Oh yeah.
Right.
I mean, that sort of depends on. I mean, this is something we do talk about. But like, what is the definition of filler, right? Like, filler doesn't really exist in the definition of like, an episode that is pointless and that you can skip. It will always contribute something. The characters will develop in some way. You will learn something about the world, which is, you learn a lot about the characters and the world in the second episode of these two. But it is a episode that is focused more on comedic and romantic aspects rather than on dramatic and action-based elements, if so to say.
Yeah, and I think you actually can connect these episodes loosely in that they're both kind of continuing the story of Holland facing up to his past, right?
Mm-hmm.
Holland has sort of taken center stage as the main character for the past couple of episodes, and I would say that although it's not 100%, obviously, these two episodes do sort of continue his development from, the jerk that we all know and hate into something more approaching a hero figure. In that sense, I think that's the theme that connects them. Holland is kind of tying up the loose ends of his past before he embarks on what he expects to be his last major adventure, right? It's and in that sense, both of these episodes, in many ways, are valuable insights into his character and his personality.
Our guy just keeps tripping over these death flags, huh?
Yeah, I know, right?
He is just just barreling through them, right? It's like those videos of like dogs who are really bad at dog shows where they just like run through all the obstacles. That's Holland.
The bit with the chase sequence in Heavy Rain where they deliberately miss all the prompts.
honestly much better than the alternative of succeeding in them there. Let's kick it off with episode 35, Astral Apache. Aqua, I'm going to assume you don't have anything for me on the music side here.
I'm assuming it's not named after the Native American tribe nor the attack helicopter, so...
Afraid not, unfortunately. And the attack helicopter is named after the Native American tribe. Of course. So, no, this is a really interesting thing, actually. So this song, Astral Apache, is by Galaxy to Galaxy. Naturally, the 2 is the number 2 there. So it's hard to describe this in the way that I've had trouble describing many of the electronic groups, projects, collectives that we've had across here. But basically, Galaxy to Galaxy is not actually really the name of a group. It's the name of an EP released in 1993, primarily by the Detroit techno DJ Mike Banks. The idea of the project was to produce a fusion of electronica and jazz. I'm not sure that I hear a huge amount of jazz in the tracks I've sampled, but also I'm not a jazz head, so your mileage may vary on that.
I mean, the thing is, jazz goes so much deeper than what, laymen associate with jazz, right?
Yeah, I am not a jazz person.
There's just so many, fundamentals of music that we just think of, that's just music that come from jazz, right?
Yes, but anyway, so Banks really is the sole creative figure here. Galaxy to Galaxy is the name of the EP. Like I said, it's not really the name of a group, though it has been used for several performances by different artists down the years, actually. One interesting thing about Banks is that he is a member of the Detroit collective Underground Resistance, who count among their many other members Jeff Mills, who is somebody who has popped up in these musical recaps before. Most notably, he wrote the song Childhood, which titled episode 6 there. So a slightly lesser known reference here, which is interesting for such a climactic episode, but quite an interesting little suite of music. I'd recommend giving it a listen to if you're into either of the disciplines there. Speaking of music, we open this episode with one of the most important revelations yet, namely that in the hyper-futuristic world of Eureka 7, the cassette boombox still exists.
Yes. And, terrorists can hijack your boombox to make it play uns music, which they use to, invade your capital.
Yes, I like that Matthieu's most important job during this high-profile mission is spinning the discs.
Yes, it's very... You get a real feel for, the pecking order of LFO pilots on the Gecko State here, right? Because part of the mission, right, is they have to bring Talho along, right? So it's okay, well... In that case, who do we bring? All right, obviously Holland is there, right? Yep. He's the point man. You bring Hilda; she's the wingman. Matthieu, you could handle the DJing back.
Yes,
back on the ship.
I mean, to give Matthieu credit, normally he would be in the pilot seat when Talho is taking his mag, but then Moondoggie got that promotion, so now he's all the way to, being the DJ.
To be fair, I would trust Moondoggie to pilot the ship more than I would trust him to spin the discs, honestly.
Yes, you know what? In some ways, everybody is in their rightful role during this operation.
What kind of music do you think Moondoggie listens to? Appalling, I bet he's got lots of, Chicago and Bryan Adams on his playlist.
No, Moondoggie seems like the kind of guy who listens to emo but isn't emo because he thinks he's not cool enough to be emo.
So you think he listens to My Chemical Romance?
Yes.
Because that pretty
I'm trying to think, what is, I am not knowledgeable enough of, the electronic and EDM scene, but I guess I'm trying to think, what is, because that's always been the vibe of the whole Gecko State crew, right? It's okay, what's the electronica for, losers?
I mean, mainstream EDM, I guess. David Guetta, Calvin Harris.
David Guetta isn't a musician.
This one goes out to George Floyd. Shout out to his family.
Oh, man.
If you're confused by that, don't bother looking it up.
I mean, I could speak from, the hip-hop angle, right? Moondoggie is totally the dude who got into Run the Jewels at, their third album.
No, Moondoggie's the Vanilla Ice guy.
Yeah.
You know,
well, I was gonna say, like, saying he's into Run the Jewels is like giving him too much credit.
No. Well, you see, this is why I emphasize he got into Run the Jewels with RTJ3. What I mean is,
I guess.
yes, he has gotten on the bad bandwagon far too late. You know, he has gotten on the bandwagon as Killer Mike is entering his respectability politics arc.
Moondoggie is the kind of guy who says, "Let's put on the party bangers," and then plays the Black Eyed Peas.
Yeah. Hey man, in RTJ3's defense, it still has Kill Your Masters on it, so...
Alright, then fine, RTJ4, I guess, if we really want to be, like, uncharitable here.
Just burying poor Doggy here. Anyway, we cut back to, while they're attacking, we cut back to the capital, where Dewey has... We've seen Dewey developing into, like, monomaniacal villain for quite a few episodes now, but he has now hit the absolute critical stage where he is quoting biblical verse at people.
Yeah, where he is being actively compared to the protagonist of Fyodor Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment. Like...
Yes, a very highbrow reference there, I must say. But yes, when is it Norb who refers to him as Raskolnikov?
Yes, yeah.
Raskolnikov. Yes, that is a reference to the main character of Fyodor Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment, Rodion Raskolnikov. Damn, like, stop making me say difficult names really fast there. But yes, Crime and Punishment, a novel about how somebody deludes themselves into believing that they have a moral right to commit a crime. So, you know, it's a little bit of an on-the-nose comparison, but it works.
I mean,
there.
call it a highbrow reference, but I think Crime and Punishment is still the go-to reference for, like, this person thinks he is above good and evil and, like, is so superior that he gets to, you know, morally justify his evil actions. It's that or Nietzsche. Like,
I might throw Paradise Lost in there.
I guess, yeah.
But yes, there's also some scripture here, like I said. He quotes "Love thy neighbor," which is originally from Leviticus 19:18. Jesus quoted it in the Gospel of Matthew and the Gospel of Mark there, and of course, in the beginning was the Word is the opening verse of John, so John 1:1
Yes.
there. But yes, just some real classic supervillain monologuing here.
I do like that they, as a little detail, that they refer to the Bible as, like, the first known printed word written by man in Eureka 7, which is obviously factually not the case.
Yeah, like, which isn't, like, isn't remotely true, but, you know.
Like,
I mean, like,
but...
you could probably make an edge case that if he is quoting from Leviticus, that's from, like, the Pentateuch, the Torah, which does possibly have a claim. Certainly, perhaps not to being the first written word, but certainly to being among the first major works of written literature. But
I think it is more like a reference to the fact that this is so far in the future. That,
right,
like,
I think that is probably more the vibe.
Things like the Epic of Gilgamesh have been forgotten to time, yet the Bible endures. Like,
I mean, that's why they refer to it not as scripture. And also, you know, there's the slight part of we quote, like, Eastern religious texts all the time because we think they're profound. Classic opposite example here where they quote Western texts. See also all of Evangelion, for example.
I mean, top three, you know, top three works of literature that will still be remembered in the 32nd century. 1, the Bible. 2, the Golden Bow. 3, the works of Fyodor Dostoevsky.
I mean, 2 out of 3 ain't bad, I'm going to say there. In the meantime, insanely good animation is happening.
Yes. I mean, obviously, like, for me, like, yes, like, the highlight of this episode has got to be just, like, the...
multiple Etano circuses.
Yes, really excellent, just kinetic, high-flying action, right? Like, when you think of, like, how LFOs should move, right? How action should feel in Eureka 7, like, this is it, right? It's half dogfighting, half surfing. Like, it's such a cool way to portray the way these mechs move, right? Just the fluidity, the speed. Holland really gets to just show off his skills as, like, the ace of Gecko State, right? Just, like, doing all these like crazy turns to avoid the missiles. There's a part where like he literally like 180s mid Itano circus back towards his assailants.
That's one of the shots that I always think about when I think about Eureka 7. Is sort of the shot where the LFO flips out of and like drops out of the sky while also twisting round, because they're so good at conveying like the weight of the momentum of the board and stuff like that. It looks fantastic.
Also, just a great showing off of what like. There's like the single shot sequence, and that just is great at showing off what you can do with animation that you could not possibly ever do in live action.
Oh, like, totally.
A camera movement like that would just be. I mean, nowadays you could do with everything what you want, whatever you want with CGI. But I mean, like in that is something that feels natural when animated, but you can't do it in real life.
And there's just a lot of cool, like even leaving aside the high technical quality of the animation, there's just a lot of cool sequences here. The gecko flying very low over the water, they put up the chaff screen, lots and lots of smoke and effects and everything like that. KLF's falling left and right just there, and Moondoggie being stupid. As you want.
Well, he's trying his best, all right.
He's doing
that whole sequence
well.
Is a perfect like encapsulation of the appeal of anime, because it is the clash between high art and low art. Like on one hand, you have cool pew 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 robots fighting, and then on the other hand, there's like these two clowns quoting the Bible and Dostoevsky at each other, like while the super powerful monk Norb accuses Dewey of being Space Hitler, and then Dewey's like, no, actually. I have the right to be Space Hitler, other people could be Space Hitler, but not me. I'm better than that, not me.
So I'm never guess which of these two see. Yes, beat me to it.
Which one's the high art? Which one's the low art?
That's for you to figure out.
It's a trick question. They're both low art.
Yes.
But yeah, then we kind of cut to a pretty, I think, major bit here, right? Which is that Eureka's developing super empathy powers, or is it super empathy powers, or is it just that she has actually developed empathy for the first time?
Yeah,
either way,
a little from
right?
column A, a little from column B.
I mean, is it even empathy? It's guilt. Like,
I mean, guilt is a kind of empathy,
I guess. Yeah. But it feels still more of like, without wanting to devalue Eureka and her development as a character, it's still more of like, oh, I don't want to do this because it feels bad, rather than like she does literally say, these people have families, but it is a very like childlike understanding of which is obviously the point, right?
Yeah. I actually, I mean, it's kind of spaced out across the episode, but I'd actually really love to just talk about Eureka and Renton's moment in this episode kind of as a whole, because I think whenever I like make that claim that I think the best mecha anime is about like character development driving...
Whoa, you're blowing my mind.
Mecha action, which in turn drives more character development. I think this is like a great example of this, because like, you have this bit here, right, where Eureka is, as we have kind of joking here, like she has basically, as of late, very much come to her own realization of guilt and empathy for her past actions, right? Her actions while in the military, the realization of what functionally she is doing as the pilot of the Nervash, and like does not want to do it anymore, right? And to echo the episode where Renton meets the couple in the woods, right? Like Eureka's like, why don't we just run away then?
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't want to hurt people, and like I don't like, regardless of the stakes of the world, what if we just ran away? Like, what if we just got far enough away from the conflicts of the world, right? That's a valid choice, or at least that's what she's positing here.
And the thing is, G, I think you're onto something, and I think actually it's bigger than that. The thing Eureka is going through is kind of a micro version of Renton's whole character arc, right?
Exactly.
First, she killed without remorse. Then she was overwhelmed by her doubt and guilt, and now the bit which Renton has got to that she has not got to yet is the realization that sometimes you do have to fight to preserve what's right. And I think the fact that Renton is the one telling her that later in this episode is a sign of his evolution into a more morally and emotionally intelligent person.
Yeah, I really love this moment for exactly the reasons you say. I mean, that was that's actually basically what I was getting to.
Sorry
Is
to
that,
cut your eggs out
it's
there.
all good. Like, but that is exactly what it is, right? Is that like Renton has, in some ways, right, like reached that like point of emotional maturity a little quicker than Eureka, and I think it's justified because we have watched Renton go through this, right? He has gone through the realization of the violence he inflicts. He has gone through his deeply complicated relationship with Ray and Charles, right? Like, and so it's believable at this moment when Renton says that, yes, he agrees, like, killing is bad. He doesn't want to hurt people anymore. But also, the stakes are too high at this point, right? We cannot run away. We are the only, it is our responsibility as the only people potentially capable of stopping this conflict to rise to the occasion. And he's not judgmental. He even tells Eureka, I will fight so that you don't have to, like, if that's what you wish to do. And I think it's a really gratifying moment to arrive at after all these episodes. And
it goes both ways, because the fact that she is still willing to accompany him, even though he does want to fight, is a sign of her affection for him, right? So it's sort of they are using each other to grow in the way that you would hope for from a relationship like this. There, so it is, and I think we see other signs of that in this episode as well. For example, when Renton and Eureka go off script, Holland is much more willing to trust that they have an agenda of their own that they will meet back up. And of course, skipping ahead a little, that's ultimately vindicated when they do show up at the most dramatically perfect moment.
Right.
But it works the other way around as well, right? Because, like, Renton still respects the other Gecko State members and how they go about, you know, their interpretation of resistance and what they can do in their fighting. Like, he's not going to be the little Brett who yells at everyone. It's like, oh, don't kill! Like, that's not who we are.
And to be clear, Gecko State waste a lot of people in this episode.
Oh yeah.
I just think they take it like it's interesting, or well, maybe it's not interesting because we can kind of expect that of this show at this point, that they take a rather nuanced and mature way of looking at it, right? That is in between, you know, indiscriminately killing anyone who gets in your way is good and based and always justified, and on the other hand, like, oh, absolute pacifism, you know, you must never harm anyone, even if it is to, you know, achieve justice. And it's nice that they can find a kind of in between, and also acknowledge that maybe this is a personal question as well, right? That it is not just about absolute ethics and that there is an absolute moral right solution, but that it can also depend on your situation and your personal values.
Yes, absolutely. And like G said earlier, I think that's reflected in the fact that Renton does give Eureka the choice. He says, you know, look, you can step away, that's fine. I'm not going to hold it against you. But he has the determination to do it the way he wants. And ultimately in this episode, I think we see Holland has reached a point of determination where he is determined to follow through on his on what he has decided to get done, because he doesn't really ever fall for any of Dewey's psychological attacks there.
Kind of reminds me of, like, the very good scene at the end of Avatar The Last Airbender, which is sort of similar, because there you also have your main character who is faced with this idea of, like, okay, I'll probably need to, you know, kill my enemies in order to get what I want, but that goes against my personal principles. And so he consults with Avatar Kyoshi, and Kyoshi is like, yo, you should smoke that guy. And Aang is just like, yeah, thanks for your advice, but, you know, that's not who I am. You know, I respect your decision to deal with your problem in your way, but I'm going to deal with my problem in my way, right? It sort of reminded me of that.
Yeah, it's a good comparison, because an enormous magical turtle turns up as a Deus Ex Machina at the end of this show as well. Yeah. Spoilers, I guess.
Damn.
Let's talk about the big reveal, I guess, in this episode, which is actually, this is a case of your annoying older brother who thinks he knows everything taken to the utmost extreme.
What if your annoying older brother fell
Was
into
Space Hitler.
far right subreddits?
Yes.
God, that whole thing with Eureka kind of reminds me, speaking of far right subreddits, of that post that was going around from like some guy on some far right subreddit who was like, I just took shrooms and I realized that other people are only just human beings like you and me. And I don't think I can be a fascist anymore. What do I do now?
Thanks, Adrian Veidt. God.
Oh, man.
Christ.
But yeah, I mean, in case it was not in some ways very obvious in some regards, yes, they make it explicit here, right? That Dewey...
I mean, did you see this coming, Aqua? Did you have any
I must admit,
here?
I knew this. I got spoiled on this.
Okay.
The thing is,
okay.
when you want to look up pictures of Holland on Google to make dank memes, you're going to get references to the fact that his full name is Holland Novak.
Yes.
So I knew this.
Yes.
Yeah. It's not... The thing is, it's not actually tremendously important. It has to be said, like I think in a lot of stories this would be like a huge twist. Here, it's interesting but sort of inconsequential. The most important thing about it is that it makes the conflict more personal.
Right. The most important thing about this is that they go way back, and we already knew that. Like,
right.
Yeah.
In some ways, this is just a period at the end of the sentence they've been building up, right? Like, it's just, yes, there is the final block or piece in the puzzle, right? That this goes beyond just an ideological difference. This is a personal conflict, right? We have Dewey doing the thing that fascist older brothers do, right? Which is like gloat to Holland, claim that Holland is still immature, that he is still following in Dewey's footsteps, right? There's
that
even
he's dating his used goods.
Right, there's that pretty ugly jab in there, and I think the thing that like is very satisfying about the sequence is actually tied to like an earlier scene in this episode, right, where we get our regular anemone mental breakdown check-in, right, where they are watching the footage with the brainwashed children, watching
the Agaha squad.
Agaha, yeah.
So is this an anemone check-in, or is this the continuing humiliation of Dominic check-in?
Column A, column B. But the reason I bring it up, right? So yeah, just to summarize, right? It's Dominic has basically submitted a report about the last battle between the End and Nervash Type 0.
Yes.
And the contents of the report are basically, hey, the Nervash Type 0 got an upgrade, and it beat the shit out of us. And this infuriates Anemone, right? Because, in that very Evangelion way, right, Anemone has tied much of her personal worth to her ability to pilot the End, right? She has tied much of her personal value to Dewey, to her abilities as the End's pilot, and she's half angry, half desperately begging Dominic not to tell this to Dewey, right? Because she is so afraid that she has run out of second chances, right?
So
that if
just whisper it, keep it on the down low. I think this girl might be crazy.
And
I mean, it's very clear that Daisato is the kind of guy who watches Evangelion and up to this date is on like forum threads being like, Ray did nothing wrong. It's Asuka who is insane.
Now, let's be kind. They're both insane.
I think a key detail here, right, is that Dominic's like, hey, has Dewey read my report yet? And the AK squad is like, yeah, I mean, we're getting around to submit.
Yes.
Very, very smug, like, it's going up the ladder. He'll get it when it matters. And I think this is important because for all of Dewey's posturing about being Space Hitler, about being the Messiah that will lead humanity to the next world order, he doesn't know fucking jack shit about the Nervash. And so it's super embarrassing when he gives his big speech about how, like, yeah, you could take Norb. It won't make a difference. I've already figured it all out.
Yeah, people don't care about the truth. People only want a good story.
He does do the classic, the masses don't care about the truth. Like, which is just it's drawn from the deepest wells of cliche. And I think not that it isn't true, but
I mean, it's true. Like this is like America is sick. It needs to be put down like a rabid dog levels of like prescient.
I mean, the problem is that it's not that Dewey's like sentiment is not wrong if you look at the current state state of things, but when it's coming out of the mouth of a guy like that, you kind of just be like, it's some real, like, Sephiroth speech type shit, right? Like,
Yes.
all right, man, shut up. Like, you are not the one-winged angel.
Look,
You're not on that level. Like,
I mean, the thing with Dewey is that he is unrealistic because he is too competent to be a fascist dictator.
But it is a little bit like the Sephiroth going, oh, join me, and I'm like, yeah, the things you're saying might make some sense, but you've still got Ave Satani playing in the background, so I suspect you might be the bad guy a little bit there.
Right.
I do think that there's.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I do think that there's some good bits here before the Nervash shows up. I think the bit where Dewey almost sort of plays with Norb by sort of daring him to use his power and sort of taunts him that he's given up on the idea that humanity and the Scub Coral can coexist. He's given up on the idea of finding a partner for Eureka, a savior who can save this world. And Norb doesn't deny it. He doesn't confirm it, but he kind of doesn't have a snippy response.
I mean, I get very much the impression from Norb that he appears to be like holding it all together, but it's very clear from this that up until Holland shows up, Norb also kind of doesn't really know what his game is, right? He has no ace up his sleeve. He has no big like Picard speech ready to tell Dewey that no, what your entire ideology is wrong and I can prove it. Like, he is just sort of lost, and he is trying to maintain this facade of being the wise monk who is not intimidated by Dewey's power plays, but it's clear that he doesn't really have a hand to play until Holland and then later Renton and Eureka show up.
Yeah, I think the way I see it is like, and I think there's actually a really good contrast between Norb and Holland here, right? Is that Norb, bereft of the knowledge of Renton's existence, right, is in some ways he is given into nihilism almost, right? Like the implications about Norb's powers is, I don't know if we ever confirm, but Norb implies that he potentially has the destroy the world button like in his hand, but like to resort to that would be such a like, in some ways deeply like, it would be to give up, right? It's the ultimate acceptance that like humanity has failed its great test, right? That if Norb has to resort to this, it means that like we as a people have failed, right? That humanity is spiritually hollow, right? And I think it's
basically the civilizational equivalent of cutting off your nose to spite your face, right?
Right. And I think whereas even before Rent and Eureka show up, Holland like shows up with a type of conviction, like for all of Dewey's taunting, it never comes off that like Holland is even remotely like intimidated by Dewey's taunts or his jabs, and that's because Holland has conviction, because he has seen what Renton and Eureka are capable of, right? He knows that there is still hope left for the world, that humanity is not bereft of love, that
I mean, this show has been about has been about Holland going through that despair and coming out the other side, right? When we first met Holland, he was perhaps somebody who would have succumbed to nihilism. He was certainly on the brink of it, he was angry and bitter and a jerk, and he's still a jerk. But I think his conviction has been hardened, especially over the course of the last half dozen episodes, which have devoted much more time to his character development.
I mean, Norb is very much a mirror of Holland, right? He was Holland's mentor, he was Holland's sort of predecessor, and his arc is very similar to Holland, because as you said, Zigg, he does embrace, or he does represent this kind of like doomerist nihilism of, I've given up, and the next logical step is just to say, screw it all, humanity can extinguish itself for all I care. He's not yet at that point, but he's at like the point where there also does not seem to be any alternative than total annihilation, which honestly relatable.
I will say that we will learn a little bit more about Norb and sort of how he has gotten to the point in his life that he has in upcoming episodes there. So
Right, because in the next episode, you also see that Norb has more in common with Holland than you might think.
Yes, one of my favourite moments there, but we will get there, yes. But I think, we can see this roughly as a hierarchy of determination, like Dewey clearly has the edge over Norb, not just in terms of raw power, but in terms of not philosophy. So, like, clearly he is more confident in his world vision than Norb is in Norb's world vision. Mm-hmm. But Holland is more confident than Dewey is, and so, as we said, Holland kind of just doesn't let it needle him. He is very firm. He is very he is not tempted at all to rise to the bait, so to speak.
To get out there and own Dewey with logic and reason in the marketplace of ideas.
And
well, the giant robots help too.
Yeah, but like Dewey doesn't really put up a resistance, which you can partially explain away by the idea that Norb is not actually incredibly important to his plans. Like, he mostly captured Norb just because there's a standing order for him to be captured. But at the same time, Holland literally just flies in, takes Norb, and they go. There's no sort of showdown. There's no sort of resistance. They just peace out, and the Gecko State's plan basically goes 100% according to plan, which is pretty rare.
They could have still, I don't know, probably killed Dewey right then. I mean, look, I know, whatever. I'm not actually nitpicking this. It's just that you got him surrounded by four. I mean, I love the moment where, everybody shows up and they almost do the fucking, Sentai ass. All right, everybody get in frame for the cool shot of Holland in front, the LFO's behind him, and even the Gecko is, flying behind them, right? They're all in frame. It's so
Unfortunately, Holland was not able to kill Dewey because he was wearing clothes and also didn't have war paint on.
Yes, of course.
He was not authorized to kill.
Right. But
Holland is only capable of killing while naked, except for all those LFO pilots who don't count.
Yes.
Anyway.
I'm not actually nitpicking it. It's just, it's funny when you, as somebody who knows what Dewey is capable of later in this show, it's wow, you really could have just,
smoked that guy.
He was surrounded by his 3 child bodyguards, and you got 4 LFO stanced up right here.
I did actually want to loop back round to the Agaha squad for a second and Dominic, because I think this sort of shows a weakness in Dewey's game plan, right? He has replaced career soldiers like Jurgens with his shitty New World Order recruits like Dominic. And then he has replaced his New World Order recruits with mentally conditioned child super soldiers like the Agaha squad. But the Agaha squad has fallen into the classic villain trap of being extremely smug, and so they have delayed the publication of this report that actually, it turns out in the next episode, is incredibly useful. And nobody actually says it, but the very strong implication is that the Agaha squad were planning to just bury this report because they thought it was from worthless worm Dominic. And unless the things that happened, Dewey would never have seen the report. So actually, Dewey's super elite squad has actually caused him quite a bit of trouble just because they have such an incredible superiority complex.
And I think that actually falls perfectly, Aqua, you were joking that Dewey's too competent to be a fascist, but I think the rest of his organization is actually a perfect encapsulation of what happens to fascist power structures, right? Is that because they are so consumed by the politicking and the appeasement to, or devotion to the central leader, right? That informs all their decisions over, more pragmatic, practical decision making that.
And you see this everywhere, right? That competent people get pushed out in favor of zealots and loyalists.
It's particularly notable here as well because, of course, these are mentally conditioned super soldier children, so they already do not particularly have much self-doubt or ability for self-reflection. So for them, anything Dominic says is automatically worthless, which is why they bury the report. And I just think it's nice that the show doesn't necessarily acknowledge this directly, but it is a show that perhaps it is kind of like a subtle hint that perhaps using mind-controlled teenagers as your elite killer squad is maybe not such a great idea for a whole host of reasons.
Great lesson to learn for real-life leaders. Don't use mind-controlled children as your elite intelligence squad.
Indeed. Anyway, this episode ends in the most characteristic way it possibly could, which is Norb trying to bum a smoke off of Holland, which is
Your
great.
first hint,
It's just
yes,
yes.
At Norb's true nature.
Also,
And
I
Holland
guess
revealing that he doesn't smoke, which is very in character because we all know that Holland is not cool enough to smoke. He vapes.
it's true. Yes, Holland definitely vapes. We have actually never seen him smoking.
Yeah.
I think the only major person we see smoking is Stoner for the most part.
I believe so.
And we know what he's smoking.
Artistic inspiration. Anyway, this episode also ends on a rare example of the show using what I call the Doctor Who cliffhanger, which is something which appears incredibly important, but is dealt with completely off screen in between episodes.
Me when I'm definitely going to kill the three sages.
Yes, which kind of works here because, the episode ends with Dewey being summoned by the sages, and the next episode opens with Dewey saying, actually, I'm not going to visit the sages, so this cliffhanger was completely pointless. I'm not going to visit them, and there are going to be no consequences. But it kind of works in context because it shows just how little he actually cares for what the sages have to say there. Anything else to say on episode 35 before we wrap up and move on to 36 there even?
Yeah, before we move on, shout out to the informant who shared his intelligence with Talho by putting it on a nudie pic of her from Rayout
Also,
and then getting killed.
What's the point of putting a postcard inside a laptop and then leaving the laptop in a abandoned power station or whatever?
I guess the implication is probably that the informant already knew his cover was blown and left a message there because he was already about to get got.
Yes,
but
if the Federation came into the power plant and they searched the place, he had to hide the nudie pic because otherwise they would take it for themselves.
Yes, exactly.
Like in Metal Gear.
I'm not sure that's a pic from Rayout necessarily, or that's like because they do say. I mean, it makes the snide joke. Oh, she's one of Talho's toys, right? It's like, like, is this just like a simp that Talho gave a nudie pic to back in her intelligence days?
No, I think Renton has that picture as a poster on his wall.
All right.
It has been established that there are like saucy what are they called?
Pin-ups.
Centerfolds.
Centerfolds, centerfolds of Talho in Rayout, which is very funny.
You got to draw the punters in somehow. There.
Yeah.
Page 3 girl Talho.
I read Rayout for the articles.
We've already used that as a title.
I know. Yes, I know. But it's too easy.
God damn it! Don't recycle that material that
all right. I read Rayout for the photojournalism. By Stoner.
Better.
So, before we move on, I would like to do a little intermezzo that I like to call "How old is Holland actually?"
Because so I was actually going to address this in as we talked about this next episode because it is a point of confusion at some point.
Because it is relevant to the next episode, and it is something I have been wondering for a very long time. Because sometimes he is coded as being like early 20s, sometimes he is coded as being like in his 30s, and the way he like shows up in various flashbacks and relates to various characters at various ages made me wonder, like, is there a canonical age for Holland? And it turns out that there is.
Oh, really? I did not know this.
So this is something anime usually does this, where they make like character profiles with how big they are and their blood type and their age
and their
on the
measurements.
website.
You're right. I do seem to recall Renton is extremely short for a 14-year-old, even for a Japanese one.
This is how we know that all Kamen Riders are canonically over 2 meters tall. But Holland is supposed to be 29, which
that's about what I read him as.
Yeah, that about makes sense, right?
I think that's acceptable. Yeah, like I think.
But then that shows, because if Holland has an age, the other characters have official ages as well. Nothing surprising there. Renton is 15, so is Eureka. Talho is 26.
Sure.
Okay, so what does this tell us? That Holland has a thing for younger women, because both of his girlfriends have been a bit younger than him. Which
3 years at 29 to 26 is not an age gap.
That's not that weird, I think.
No, but
that's completely fine.
I mean, I think it. No, I'm not saying he's a creep. I'm just saying it says something about his character. You know, he's kind of a man-child who.
Okay,
I guess. Like, I don't think that's...
Okay, Aqua, here's actually my cynical explanation on that. And I think that's just because most writers are men. And most writers would assume that the man is older in the relationship. I think it's just that simple. I think it is just
Talho is 26 because no woman in anime can be older than 30. Like,
yes, I think that is literally all it is.
And then I came to the revelation... Wait, so if Holland has a canonical age and Talho has a canonical age, Dewey has a canonical age as well. How old is Dewey?
31.
My guess would be he's in his mid-30s.
He is 36.
Okay,
sure.
that's...
And as of the last episode, we learned that Dewey and Talho used to be a thing.
Ooh.
I mean, look,
okay.
If we assume Talho was like 22 and Dewey was like 32, I've seen relationships like that. It happens, you know.
Okay, but I will say, I kind of get what Aqua was building up to, where that's fine. Again, I think that's fine, but it is worth slightly more side eye, especially because of what we know about Dewey, I guess is what I'm saying. This is less about the age gap and more...
It just shows what kind of guy he is, right?
Right, because also we know that Dewey enjoys having power over younger people, right? Anemone, the Agahe squad.
Yeah,
right?
I was going to say, there is a lingering sort of trail of... I'm not going to say pedophilia, but like a lingering trail of damage to younger women.
Yeah, taking advantage of his like position and his advanced age, right?
Yes, I mean, the thing is also that like Dewey is deliberately designed to look older than his age.
Right.
Like, he reads much more as a man in his 40s and 50s, even though that's
Dewey is the hardest looking 36 since Ramba Rawl.
I mean, we do know he has spent considerable time in a penal colony.
Yeah.
So,
sure.
How old was Ramba Rawl meant to be?
35.
Yeah, right. Definitely.
I mean, basically what I'm saying is this revelation tells us that there is a perfect way for the Gecko State, our cool rebel heroes, to take down Dewey Novak, which is they just have to drop a diss track.
Oh my god. Matthieu,
who would you trust to rap a diss track from the Gecko State?
Matthieu on the beat, ho.
No, I mean, like, I think we can assume that Matthieu will be the DJ, right? We saw him.
Yes, that's what I mean. He's on that beat, ho.
Yeah.
So, like, who's your lead rapper?
Ooh. No, it can't be Holland. It can't be Holland. It absolutely cannot be Holland. That's too cursed. I would...
Ken-Goh, screw it.
Yeah,
Yes.
I would sooner have Ken-Goh featuring Holland than...
Ken-Goh, but he just does all of Eminem's dad joke raps.
Yes.
Oh, God.
Ken-Goh just... Have you heard of Chris Christopherson? Well, I'm pissed Christopherson.
Oh, my God. So...
Okay, so... Ken-Goh is Ron, Jobs is DMC.
I was gonna be Ken-Goh is Chuck D and Holland is Flavor Flav.
Oh my god!
I mean, we'll get into Holland's fashion choices here in a little bit, but you know, who would I? We can't open this can of worms.
What's the name of episode 36? What novel music reference are we treating
episode 36 is called Fight the Power, and no. No, episode 36 is called Fantasia. This is not a reference to this is not a reference to the Disney movie. The term Fantasia predates the Disney movie. It's a kind of musical. It's a description for a musical piece which sort of just wanders according to the composer's preference rather than a strict form like an adagio or a waltz or something like that. But this particular Fantasia that they're referencing here is by the German electronic artist Harold Bruchel, although he's better known by his alias Cosmic Baby. That's practically normal by like women DJ names, honestly. It's from his sophomore album, 1994's Thinking About Myself. It's quite a cool track. I listened to it before we started recording this episode, so give it a listen. But yeah, that's about it in terms of the musical reference here. So, this episode opens with Dewey finally getting to his paperwork and reading Dominic's report and basically going, wow, this sure would have been useful to know about 15 to 20 minutes ago, let's say.
It just kind of shows how Dominic has gone from Dewey's like most loyal soldier and bootlicker to not even a cog in the machine anymore. Like, he is a speck of dust on the floor of the machine.
I mean, I think the secret, though, is that Dewey always thought he was a speck of dust on the floor of the machine. It's only Dominic who had delusions of grandeur about his...
Right. He used Dominic to climb back when they were still closer in rank to one another, and now... like, Dewey's on the top of the mountain and Dominic's all the way at the bottom.
Yeah, and as we alluded to in the past episode, he does not even bother to maintain the pretense of going to see the sages. He just brushes them off. He also has a sick new ship that looks pretty much what you would get if you typed evil ship into Google.
Evil gecko. Yeah.
Gecko, but evil, yes. I love the design of this ship.
Oh, yeah. It's like a flying series of triangles, basically.
Yes, very
pointy, stabby bits.
Yes.
And the thing I noted about this opening sequence is that Dewey seems pretty sure that he knows what the Gecko crew are doing. Like, he seems very confident in knowing exactly what they're going to try, which is interesting because they don't know exactly what they're going to try.
Well, and it's also wrong because they're not going anywhere. They're just faffing about for an episode.
I think, I think grabbing Norb in some ways actually did make Gecko State's intentions pretty obvious, right?
I just think it's interesting that, like, we mentioned this briefly a couple of episodes ago when Dewey and Norb first met, but one way or another, Dewey seems to have the inside track on a lot of the information that Norb revealed to Holland of his own free will, right? And we can probably surmise that a lot of this comes from him being able to access Adrock's research and being part of that research unit, right? But certainly Dewey still appears to be confident that he's on the front foot here.
I mean, I think it's just an example of, like, classic villainous hubris, right? Like, he has to at least maintain the facade of always being one step ahead, and in order to kind of, like, save face to himself almost, because he got outplayed in the last episode. Like, there was legitimately... like, Holland legitimately had a piece of information that Dewey didn't really have, or at least didn't really consider to be that important.
Yes, I think it's a little bit of a combination of the two, you know. I think that he genuinely does have plans which put him on the front foot, but yes, there's also certainly an element of projection there, as there is with all villains there. But most importantly, this episode revives a great Eureka 7 tradition, which is your wise and much admired mentor actually turning out to be a dirtbag piece of shit.
Yep. I mean, but enough about these men. This episode is all about women and how they be shopping.
You're not skipping past this. We need to address the elephant in the room.
Mayonnaise on pizza.
Yep, Norb is a mayonnaise pervert in the grand Japanese tradition.
It's so much. Like, here's the thing. As somebody who, like, has recently become Kewpie pilled, right? Like, yes, it is a legitimately good mayo. It is a nice savory addition to a surprising number of dishes. Bro is putting that on that pizza like it's whipped cream or something. It's monstrous. It's insane. Actually, maybe we shouldn't have busted Norb out. Maybe we should have left him to his fate.
I do appreciate the incredible hard shift directly into I'm laying about on this couch eating pizza and moping and being shitty in exactly the same way Holland was when we first introduced him.
The only thing missing is like the comical nudie mag, like a pile of nudie mags nearby or something to really just complete the trifecta of like Norb just being a total piece of shit.
He's still trying to bum smokes off of Holland.
Yeah.
Is this like a weird metaphor for like generational conflict? Like Renton is the wide-eyed Gen Zer, Holland is the millennial, and then Norb is the fucking Gen Xer who is just turns out to be no better.
I mean, I think it is just a recurrence of the idea that actually your heroes and mentors are human people who can occasionally be shitty, but it's very funny in context.
It's great, right?
Incredibly funny there. I think as well, we see this is tricky because, as you were saying, Aqua, a large part of this episode does come across as women do be shopping. I think I think it does start on an interesting and somewhat relatable note, which is that for the first time, Eureka's kind of concerned about her appearance.
Yeah,
I
mean, I think it's a good angle. I just kind of saw the bit where like Renton's looking at the scratch and he's like, "Oh, a scratch, that's bad," and I'm immediately like, "Oh no, I know what this episode is going to be," and I was right on the money.
Yeah, absolutely, yes. It is a little bit of blunt trauma metaphors, blood metaphor trauma here. I think that so one thing I want to point out is that I have written in my notes the art style of this episode makes Eureka look very baby. And she is constantly drawn in this episode with like huge eyes. And
I might have to check who the AD on this was because like even like I don't know if it's intentional, but in the conversation between Norb and Holland, even Holland looks to be drawn. He's feels a little younger when he's talking to Norb, and I wonder if like it's just maybe we've talked about this before, right? Yeah. Where like clearly different episode directors have kind of had their own stylistic choices when it comes to this show.
I mean, I think there obviously is a concerted effort to make Eureka look cute in this episode because it's the point.
I think right. I actually don't really agree. I think she looks ghastlier than usual, and I think that's a kind of a deliberate choice that I'm not sure I agree with. Like it's almost like in this episode, like they want to sort of stress how conventionally unattractive she looks ever since the incident. Like they gave her forehead is big, her eyes are like dull and always wide open. She's paler than usual. Like I'm not sure if that is the right way for an episode with this kind of message to go.
I feel like this may very heavily depend on like which frames of the episode you're looking at, because I think I may lean closer to Zigg, where I feel like I'm just like skipping around the episode right now, and I feel like a lot of these shots have Eureka looking pretty baby faced, but again,
pretty
it could be
kawaii ugu,
yeah, but again, it could just be there are, look, it's an anime, also, like sometimes
different strokes for different folks, right? Like
or off model, right? Like it is the reality of just like, hey.
And I mean, I will also point out this comes directly after an episode which was scrupulously on model and was clearly.
I think this episode is distinctly lower budget.
Yeah, I mean, clearly an episode which had a lot of work done in house that was paid very close attention to. So a little bit of more looseness is going to be noticeable. But yeah, let's tackle this Eureka plotline first, because it is a combination of kind of some interesting ideas, some cute moments, and some slightly more questionable ones here. So the basic idea here is that Eureka is worried about her appearance, which is meant to be kind of rough looking ever since her close encounter with the bubblegum cocoon. Mm-hmm. She has the short hair, she has the scars, but this runs into the inherent problem of anime in that, like, by all accounts, she is still extremely cute. Like she's in an anime. Everybody in anime is cute. Like,
I mean,
right?
Yes, but credit where it's due. I think the show has been remarkably brave in making Eureka like conveniently, like not conveniently,
Conventionally?
conventionally unattractive, or like she is not conventionally cute, right? She has the bulging vein, she has the stare, she's pale, her hair is like slightly too short, so it reveals too much of her forehead. I think the show has been pretty courageous in like not making her this moe archetype that is endearing simply because she looks a certain conventionally attractive way, and make her endearing through her behavior and her character development. And
yes, and I will give them credit for the fact that they have not walked back her appearance, which they probably could have. They could have through conventional, like her hair would have grown out again, but they have stuck to that, and I admire them for that. But again, it's just at the same time she is still conventionally very attractive.
It's a little bit of the well, I mean, obviously Zuko's burn scar. Wow, weird. We're referencing Last Airbender again, it's a little bit of
Zuko
the
here.
It's a little bit of the like, okay, yes, this character is scarred, is disfigured in some way, but also
it's a sick and cool scar.
Well, yes, in Zuko's case, it's cool. In Eureka's case, it's like it's on her forehead and it's on her cheek. It's like it's not like it doesn't get in the way, quote unquote.
Yeah,
right?
They're more charm points than anything else.
But I think it is. But also, I do think because they've committed to this design for so long, I think it's like. Despite, yes, maybe some of the execution here, I actually do appreciate that. I think it's very believable that as Eureka becomes more self-aware about her relationship with Renton, that she would grow, more self-conscious about her appearance in the way that, like, again, not even necessarily conforming to, like, beauty standards, but I think just in general, people are always to some degree self-conscious about how they look, right?
Right, and thematically it does fit into her evolution towards being a quote-unquote normal teenage girl. She's becoming more self-aware, and that includes things like her appearance.
But that's the thing, like, you can write a compelling story arc about, this character wants to look prettier because they want to be confident and because they want to love themselves. But where this episode just shoots themselves in the foot, it's just like, oh, you gotta look pretty for your man, and you just want to look pretty for your man. And like, even in the end, that is still like the message that they send, right? A woman only wants to look pretty because it makes the man happy.
Yes, I don't think it's an egregious example of the trope there.
But it's just like, the thing is, like, the right thing to do here is so simple. Just say, wear makeup if you want to, and don't wear makeup if you don't want to. Like, but
and spoiler alert, she will not continue to wear makeup after this episode.
Right? Like, no, but that's not really a plot development. That's more like we want to draw her with her standard character design instead of with the blush and the lipstick. Like,
yes, exactly. It's a snapback more than a development. There.
I think I get where Aqua was coming from. I think I probably side more with Zigg here. That I think at the end of the day, I don't think this is necessarily the most malicious example of like.
Oh no!
I'm not necessarily saying it's good. I'm saying that like it could have been much more blatant.
I mean, that's what I said. Like, it's a women be shopping, not a women stay in the kitchen kind of episode. Like, it's just another example of this show adhering to the like very anime gender norms of like, women, they are just a certain way, because they're women. And
right, it's not written maliciously.
Like,
it's not written maliciously, but at the same time, you can definitely tell this was written by like middle-aged Japanese men.
And I think
it's the sexism equivalent of "you're one of the good ones." Like,
I don't know. I think it's like I feel like I again, is this like my favorite episode of the world? Though I'm not going to die on the hill, but I think there's a lot of charming interactions in this episode. Like, even if like the motivations are a little suspect, like I really do enjoy like Gidget's interactions with Eureka this episode. Like,
every episode where Gidget,
is like, oh, I like to look good because Moondoggie likes me more when I look good. It's like, okay, but also, like, in all fairness, Gidget and Moondoggie are a couple of idiots. They are, and
Gidget's character is kind of. I don't mean this in a pejorative way, but her character she's kind of like a shallow valley girl, if you know what I mean. That's part of her charm, is that she's a little ditzy.
Right, but also she's a good person, and she wants to help Eureka out here, like, genuinely, right?
And I do appreciate that after the episode where, like, Gidget pledged to be good friends with Eureka, they have continued to give us scenes with the two of them together that show that she is living up to that promise, right? She is.
I have to say, it's very funny though that Gidget like buys a bunch of makeup for Eureka, is like, put it on rent and step, and then just leaves her alone with the makeup.
Okay, so yeah, that is something the least realistic. Like, I do not even like.
Eureka does explicitly say that she wants to do it herself.
Yes,
though.
but I think I feel like
still.
if I think you would think Gidget of all people, who like clearly is somebody who like is very experienced in like using makeup and cosmetics in that conventionally like feminine way, she would know, hey, actually you can fuck up makeup really easily. How about I
oh yeah
guide you through this, because you're come on, Gidget, Eureka, like you would trust Eureka to do her own makeup. Like,
I think that there are a couple of really funny scenes here, though. I do think it's insane that the Gecko store not only has a full range of makeup.
Oh yeah,
it has foundation tones that go all the way from like Gidget's coffee colored to Eureka's pure white.
It's very good.
Like, what is this store? Like,
I mean, I guess
are they just like running a franchise branch in the middle of a?
I think so. Yeah, I think Holland just like rents out that bit of the Gecko to like this universe equivalent of Amazon, and they stock it with everything they have. Like,
we do also get a fun use of fewer frames of funnier here as well when they fill up that basket.
I think when the composition of your crew is like, what was it, like 40% female, 30%, like
it's pretty close to being an even balance.
Yeah, they'd probably be like, hey, we get a say over how the store or how the ship convenience store gets stocked.
Right, it even has pregnancy tests, as we learned last time. So
the whole concept of the ship store gets more and more baffling every time we see it there. I do also enjoy that we get a return to old Renton for a second when Eureka shows up looking terrible, obviously, and he immediately puts his foot in it and makes it incredibly worse.
Yes, he fucks it up immediately, as you expect him to.
Yes, and we get the delightful touch of the children bursting into tears.
It's very good. Yeah. Look, children are honest. They cannot. And that includes Renton. They cannot help but
I mean, she's like the opposite of the Joker. The Joker gets socially ostracized and dresses up like a clown, and Eureka dresses up like a clown and gets socially ostracized.
Yeah, I think she still looks weird even with Talho's quote unquote good makeup on.
Yeah.
Just let her. Like I said, she's perfectly cute in her normal character design. Just let her be there. That plot's fun, but the real meat of this episode is... So, let's start with an important question. Does Holland recounting his backstory in the bath count as an important scene set in a bathroom?
I mean,
it's at least adjacent to it.
It's at least adjacent because it is still two male characters bonding while they can see each other's private parts. So I think that's the important thing. So yes, this counts.
Sure. Okay, let's go with that.
I mean, significant. I mean, the entire backstory is told in this bathroom. It's like
it's an interesting visual choice, if nothing else.
Yes.
And the thing which baffles me about it is that, like, it's actually really well shot. Like, there's a whole bunch of scenes here using, like, certain angles or, like, mirrors. There's quite a few mirrored shots where we see, like, the back of characters' heads and stuff. And that's all more work. So, like, it's clearly a deliberate creative choice.
Oh, totally. No, I think...
I guess you could argue that, like, by being literally naked, Holland is being figuratively naked as well.
I was just about to say, like, knowing this show and, like, this is the same discussion we had when we talked about the toilets, right? It's literally that, a toilet, like going to the toilet is embarrassing, so it is an opportunity for characters to be vulnerable, and this is the exact same thing.
Yeah,
yeah. It's perhaps not quite as baffling a choice as the toilet scenes, but yeah, we basically, the other half of this episode is basically dedicated to a series of flashbacks showing Holland's history with in particular Diane, Renton's sister, but mostly
Yes.
with the Thurston family in general, really. I was really thrown off by this first flashback because although Holland looks younger, he does not look as young
no.
as he is clearly meant to be.
He says he is 12. And he looks older than Renton at 15. And yes, we already established that Renton is a short 15, but like...
Holland just looks like himself without the soul patch.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that's the thing. We've seen like young Holland at the age of like 19 or 20, and he basically looks the same as he does here, which is why it's so disconcerting when he opens his mouth and they use the like little boy voice for him.
Right. And it's like, again, if you like, look, if we believe him and he's actually 12 and like, I don't know, Diane is coded here to be like, I don't know, 6 to 8 or something. It's like it's not that weird, but it's like I think it's because of the sheer disparity in their character designs here in their first meeting, where like Diane is like very little baby coded, and Holland
that's the weird thing,
looks
right?
18.
Because he just looks like Holland.
Yeah, because of my research, we know that the canonical age gap between them is 3 years.
Right, that was about what
because
I guessed.
Holland says that he was 12. And we know that he is 29 now, and then in the later flashback scene, Diane says she's 16. So based on that, we can calculate that there's like a gap of 3 years between them. But yes, Diane looks like a little girl, while Holland looks like a teenager. Like even though she's 9 and he is 12.
Right.
It's very odd.
By like biological standards, a 9-year-old girl should probably look more mature than a 12-year-old boy.
Look, just puberty hit Holland really fast. That's all.
Yeah,
And as we've already established, apparently the Thurston family are just late bloomers, like in general.
We do get an unusual, not an unusual, a rare appearance of Adrock in the flesh here, actually, which has happened before but is very limited. This is also the first episode where we actually see Diane's face, and that it's done with fairly little, with like not much fanfare. But I do like it because it's sort of symbolically, it's symbolic of her being allowed to be back in the story, right? As Holland confesses he's passed, she is sort of reintroduced as a person into the story, right? And that's like. I think that's a nice little bit of symbolism.
I mean, she's not just an ideal, right? Because up until now, she has always been put on the pedestal as like the person Renton is writing to in his narration, the lost Lenore to Holland. And in this episode, we actually get to like see who she was and what she cared about.
And we kind of get to tear down some of that mythos around Diane, right? Like because I think a big aspect of this flashback is about how like Diane and Holland's shared history is about the shared history of, like, in some ways, this entire story, right? Of Adrock's disappearance, right? Of the Seventh Swell, of the ways in which that inciting moment, like, destroys the Thurston family, right? And, you know, like, we see that Diane loses herself in the obsession, right? To like follow her father or figure out, there's a lot of implications about what motivates Diane here. Is it like some desire to like make sense of her father's disappearance, a desire to, complete his work, right? But regardless, the point is that, that is the inciting event of like, not just Renton and the Thurston family, but like Holland as well. And like his eventual journey towards leading Gecko State.
Right.
I think the thing that I took from these flashbacks, which I don't think I necessarily got the first time I watched this show, is that I'm not sure, like, for Holland, clearly Diane is like an incredibly important figure, like his first love, the first girl he dated, he's always carried a torch for her, which has caused some stress with Talho in the past year. My read here is that I don't think Diane was ever interested in Holland. I think she was using him.
I wouldn't go that far. I would just say like he was like a guy, and she was like kind of interested in. Okay, like sure, like let's go on a date with this guy. But like she's a 16-year-old girl, right? She is not thinking about her future per se. Like she's just going on a date with Holland. but then later on, she starts to realize what actually matters to her, and
Yes.
she is just not in a position or anymore to have any interest in what Holland wants, while Holland is just
I think it's very.
But the key thing here, I think, is that it's pointed out that she got her job as a researcher because Holland leaned on Dewey to lean on someone else, right?
Right. I do think it's like I think there's definitely elements of like, yes, Diane probably had a more utilitarian purpose, but also I think the way Diane is, because I think we have to remember, right? We see three points of time in Diane's life, right? We see her as a child, we see her as a teenager, and we see her as a young adult. And I think the teenage Diane is still coded as somebody who like is very much not. I mean, she is not there yet. Yes, she is driven by a desire to make sense of her father's passing, but also she is still a person, right? She is still an older sister. She's still family, right? This is the same Diane that gets mad at Renton for hiding her shoes, right? I think,
right.
I do think that Diane probably did, start a relationship with Holland out of like, I think it's probably genuine affection, but I think what we see with the final time we see her is that as she matures and as her goals kind of come into shape, into figure, I think that is kind of where, like, yes, the love gets replaced by a much more utilitarian motivation.
I mean, she kind of grew up far faster than him, right? She was already dedicating her life and to research, while Holland was still like, I'm just a soldier. I like surfing and I'll follow orders when I need to. Like, he hasn't had his reckoning yet. Also, I think, like, I have a more charitable reading of Diane. I think maybe like the whole thing of like, oh, I got my job because you put in a good word for me with Dewey. I think that's weird because she is Adrock Thurston's daughter. She doesn't need anyone to recommend her. So there's a chance that she just tells Holland this to, like, boost his ego a little bit. He's like, yeah, you sure did an important thing for me, honey. What would I do without you?
I guess, but I think I feel like that plot that is specific, like taking it from like a Doyleist point of view, right? You put that line of dialogue in specifically because you want to convey something, and I think the thing they are trying to convey is that there was an ulterior motive.
I think that's fair.
I'm going to have to disagree with you. I'm not saying that Diane was a bad person or that she never had any affection for Holland. Clearly, she remembered him from their first encounter at the lifting spot. Clearly he made an impression on her, but I think that especially in the middle flashback where we see her presumably immediately in the wake of Adrock's death, I think that there is clearly a sort of a drive, a mania that's already present there. And I think I think that she saw Holland, again, not necessarily in a purely malicious way, but she saw him as a useful stepping stone to get where she needed to go.
Right.
But the fact that we are able to debate it shows that the character, even in the limited appearance that she has in this episode, has dimensions, right? There is still a great deal of mystery surrounding Diane. Very importantly, at the end of this episode, Holland describes Adrock as dead, but he describes Diane as disappeared.
Missing.
Yes.
I mean, it's once again the show being, mature and nuanced and finding a middle ground between too pure, too good for this world and, evil, manipulative, conniving Sly Fox, like the way most anime would go about it.
Yes, and I think it's interesting that they choose to bring Diane up now, because the things that are coming out are not necessarily directly related to the plot yet, at least. But I think it's another way to show an increasing closeness between Holland and Renton, right? It's another way.
I mean, this is Holland laying the cards out, right? He's like, in some ways, yes, even if this doesn't technically matter at this current juncture in the narrative, this is Holland basically telling Renton, you have earned the right to know my story, right? How I'm connected to you, right? How I knew your sister, right? Like, we are peers now, essentially, right? We are comrades, right? I see you as a fellow member of Gecko State, and you deserve, like, again, this is a huge, and in some ways, I would actually say these 2 episodes do a better job at like turning me on Holland compared to like his initial "I'm sorry, kids" moment a few episodes ago, because this actually feels like he is putting in the legwork to.
Right, that's the thing, right?
It's the difference between like the big gesture, but this is kind of like the more subtle ways in which that relationship is being built brick by brick.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Yeah. Last episodes were him talking the talk. This is him walking the walk. Like,
and I think walking the walk is just going to impress me more. So
yeah,
but
fair.
yes, the other thing I wanted to point out about this flashback actually is visually, I'm sure there must be a purpose to it, but I was very much trying to figure out the intent of the very inconsistent color toning of the
Watch
flashbacks.
just Schindler's List once.
Well, because it starts out as pure like monochrome, right? Like it's like, or actually it's not pure monochrome. There are very like slight hints of color in Holland's eyes and Diane's hair, but it's like a very like cool coded grayscale.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And then you get the very sepia tone in the second scene, right after Abdrock's death. Then you go back to the monochrome for the date, right? It's very interesting, and I wonder what the intent there was like, because I mean, also it's very funny because these events happened like, I don't know, like 15 years ago. It's like not even.
Yeah, it wasn't long ago.
It's like, let's go back in the day, you know?
I mean, it's not even 15 years ago because Renton shows up in that middle flashback.
Oh,
like,
yeah,
this is like 9
10
years
years
ago.
ago.
Yeah, which is very goofy,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's interesting that they implemented 2 different methods to visually communicate a flashback.
I don't really have an explanation for it, to be honest. Save to say that, like, we have flashbacks in the past in the show have generally used the more monochrome tint, right? I think the pops of colour there are just to keep it interesting and engaging. We have, however, constantly seen Diane bathed in a sort of warm golden
the
light.
piss filter. Right, yes, piss filter Diane from like dozens of episodes ago.
Yeah. If you recall when Renton and Eureka were sucked into the Corellian and had their vision of themselves standing by the lake, they saw Diane there, and that scene was also tinted in like a very rich gold palette. That was in the first opening as well.
Also, speaking of the piss filter, I think that the reason why the middle flashback looks more sepia might just be the fact that it's sort of like the standard flashback monochrome, and the filter of the like Bell Forest sort of arid Rocky Mountains canyon-esque landscape sort of blending together. That might be the reason why it looks a little bit different.
There's also just the possibility that they wanted to change the visual style up to indicate the passing of time, right?
Yeah.
Just by staggering your flashback styles, you are able to communicate each time that a considerable length of time has passed.
The narrower the frame becomes, the longer ago the flashback is.
Yes. Everybody knows that flashbacks in 4x3 are the oldest flashbacks of all. Unfortunately, since this entire show is in 4x3, you can't do that. But
what about flashbacks in anamorphic widescreen?
That just proves you're Michael Bay. A couple of other things I want to point out here. Holland's incredible bowling shirt and gold chain combo.
Yeah.
Where I was just like, oh wow, it feels like I'm on Venice Beach in the 1980s.
Look, man, he's a he's a career soldier and a surfer bro. Like, you should just be happy he wore a shirt at all.
I mean, joking aside, it does convey a sort of more swaggery, flashy, blingy younger Holland, right? Like,
He's got a chain, man.
Yeah.
I don't know. To me, it conveys that he was like an out-of-touch loser, like a guy who has known nothing but the military.
I mean, he kind of is meant to be a dork, right? Like, he's never dated a girl before or anything like that. I just think it's very endearing there. The other thing, a little bit more serious, I wanted to point out is the end of Holland's speech in the bathroom, where he's kind of reached an equilibrium, right? He's like, I can't change, I'm a killer, but what that means is, let me do the dirty work for you. So you can stay pure, you can remain unsullied. I will do the tough stuff. That's my mission now, which sort of feels like he's found a nice equilibrium between, trying to change and trying to not change, right? It feels like he has finally accepted his role in sort of the structure of everything that is going on.
The man has learned to weaponize his self-loathing. Like, I'm a bastard, but at least I can use my bastardness for positive ends.
Yeah, that's basically.
Yeah, I mean, this is like the nice culmination of the themes that were established in the previous episode, right? Where Renton does not want to kill, but he is also not going to preach to Holland about it, right? Like he, like in some ways, it's like, is it a good thing to be a killer? Probably not. But he accepts that, yes, that is who Holland is, and like they come to that mutual understanding about their respective roles on the Gecko State.
Yeah, and I think Renton is mature enough to understand that there will. I mean, he showed it by speaking to Eureka. There will be fighting. Like it or not. Holland has killed some really dangerous people. Charles comes to mind. But,
and also this is like part of the classic mecha thing where the mecha protagonist often gets to be a pacifist because they are sitting in the super god machine that is so overwhelmingly powerful. It can harmlessly disarm its opponents without caring for its own self-preservation. Whereas everybody else is like, I don't know, man, I got a gun. Like, you want me to...
Let's just pop this guy.
Yeah, right. It's like what? 7 swell? What? No, this thing has a shoulder cannon.
But, I don't know, man. In the classic mecha protagonist's defense, Amuro just totally smoked that guy in the hospital, and then his mom is like, "How dare you kill that man?" And he's like,
"Well,
this is
okay."
A war
to be
woman.
clear, when we talk about the pacifist mecha protagonist is very much a post-original Gundam thing, but
then this scene ends on this extremely weird and discordant note where Holland is like, so is she a goer then? Is your girl a goer?
I mean, I think that is just a very dude's way to de-escalate, because they've been talking some pretty heavy stuff, right? And Holland's
but it's they're kids. It's creepy,
Well, again, clearly Holland had a very different upbringing, and he may have been influenced by. Because at the very beginning of this episode, Norb does, his one last word in is, do they really love each other, though?
Yeah.
And
yes. And
I think obviously
we will see the reason for his concerns.
Yes,
coming
definitely.
Up, but...
And I don't think that's necessarily supposed to be have they fucked yet? I don't think Norb is implying that physical intimacy is a component of love, but I think what he is
asking
Holland
is certainly is.
Well,
I mean, Holland is just doing the big bro teasing thing.
Yes, I think that's all it is. That's all it is.
It's just like that trope has such a weird, creepy history in anime that it's. I just felt it was a little tonally discordant here,
but also, I do think it is entirely in character for Holland, right?
I guess.
Even if he is maturing into this capable leader role, he is still Holland, and he is still going to get his jabs in where he can.
Yeah, maybe. It's just they have coded Eureka as kind of like a little sister / daughter figure to him, so it's weird that he's asking about her sexual
and
history.
You know what? In all fairness, I think Renton does actually make a pretty big step here at the end of this episode, right? Where
I mean, he tells her he loves her straight up,
to her face. No pretension, no big confession. He just says it, and I think that's actually. In some ways, that's actually the way more important first step, right? Is that emotional honesty.
I think this scene is sort of hilarious because she's still got her crazy panda makeup caked on. Yeah.
I mean, this is so much better than the big dramatic anime confession, right?
Yeah,
this is just of course you love her, dude. You guys have practically been dating for 12 episodes now.
Right, but there's still power in actually saying something. Right? It's still important.
I think that's so important. I think it's it is it is the fist pump moment of this episode, right? Where in this moment where Renton literally cannot hold in his laughter every time he looks at Eureka's face, but he says it, right? He says he says she's pretty. He says he loves her, right? It's one thing to be oh yeah, clearly it's obvious. It's another thing to buckle down and commit to it, right? To say it out loud to the person.
And I think one of the great strengths of the show is that it is I'm not necessarily going to say realistic about the way a relationship develops, but it is realistic that in most relationships there is not like one catalyzing moment where
Right.
you realise you're in love with somebody. No, it's a gradual development, and like intimacy and comfortableness with other people comes in stages. It comes over a period of a long time, and the show has done a great example of showing Rent and Eureka truly falling in love and truly becoming comfortable and reliant on each other as a slow process that has gradually gotten more and more intense as time has gone by. And I think that's to be commended here. Anyway, because we can't end on anything happy, we instead decide to end on perhaps the most problematic woman scene yet.
One more anemone crash out for the road.
Surely, if she does well this time, then Papa Dewey will be happy. Surely.
I mean, in some ways, this is a great illustration
it's a fantastic scene.
Of the contrast between the Gecko State and the Federation, right? Is like, we see the ways in which, Talho and Holland treat and, behave around Eureka and Renton, directly contrasted to Dewey's obligatory anemone check-in, which almost doesn't even, it's obviously not from a place of concern. It's clearly that like Dewey knows that anemone is spiraling and like realizes, oh, okay, I need to like give her, if I show her my face one time every few months, that's enough to keep her on the leash.
I mean, he is schmoozing her. Like, that's the word I would use. He is buttering her up. And it works because, like, it's a really interesting dynamic because he's buttering her up, but he's barely hiding the fact that it's insincere. But it doesn't matter because she is so desperate for his approval. Like, she was always desperate for his approval, but here she is like a dying man gasping for water. She is just completely flying off the hinge here. She is beating up Dominic even more than usual. She is gagging for Dewey's, hanging off his every word. And it's kind of scary, honestly.
It's scary, it's desperate, it's sad, right? It's like, you could, like, all these, like, we don't actually. It's funny. I feel like I remember there being more anemone screen time in this show, but like it really.
Yeah,
is
I'm the same
limited.
here. Like,
but I feel like you could still like read volumes into like her character, like how she must have been raised, how she must have been like trained and educated. If this is like how she behaves, right? I
mean, we know that there is some. Chemical and psychological.
I mean, yes, there's also the evil woman
juice,
but even without the evil woman juice, like there is conditioning. There's,
I mean that girl
grooming,
is not well,
right?
There.
Like she's clearly been groomed in the classic sense, right?
I mean, like this is what I meant earlier when I said that perhaps there is some weird pedophilic energy around Dewey. Like, it's not like. The relationship is probably not sexual, although it has sexual overtones because that's part of the threatening aura of it. But yes, you're right. Clearly, she has been groomed to be reliant on Dewey and to be desperate for his approval. And we have seen that desperation in relative terms over the show, but now that sort of she's on the edge, it is coming out to a disturbing degree. Yes. And we are seeing, something that was done very effectively with Asuka in Evangelion as well. It is actually, when somebody plays the tsundere thing perfectly straight, it's actually sort of pathetic and terrifying, right? Like the way she rounds on Dominic here before going back to simpering over Dewey is she really feels on the verge of a nervous breakdown, really, here. Another nervous breakdown, I think.
And she's told basically that, she'll have a new mission unrelated to the nerve ash. And of course, Dewey frames it in ways, oh, well, it's a mission that only you can do. And we get a shot of new toys. Well, new robot.
Indeed.
Who are, blue and white, which is the colors of, or at least that's the color of the uniforms of the Agahe Squadron. So you can kind of put, 2 and 2 together there. But
what if we combined our forces of psycho teenage girls?
Definitely. You get the. I also do also not a lot of Dominic, but there is the as Dominic gets ground down and pushed out of the Dewey inner circle, we also see again, whether it's out of the kindness of his heart or simply utilitarian concerns, Dominic is like, hey, you need to put this girl on leave. You need to like this girl needs a vacation. She needs
She deserves
anything
a vacation, yeah.
other than what you are doing, right? And it's again, like, I think there's we can talk about this more in the future with Dominic's development, but I think there's a little bit of like, again, I think a lot of Dewey's like undoings are often because of the ways he has structured his own organization to be built around sycophants and zealots, right? Because I think, ironically, the world in which Dewey keeps Dominic in his inner circle, even just as a show, you probably have a much more loyal Dominic, or one that is like less concerned about Anemone's well-being.
Or put it this way: Dominic did not care about Dewey's large-scale acts of evil, but he cares about the personal level acts of evil. And
yes,
he has developed a relationship with Anemone, call it what you will. I don't know whether it's, a codependency, a morality pet or something like that, but he has begun to see Dewey's cruelty and indifference through the lens of his treatment of Anemone. And in that way, it's this relationship which has awakened him to the idea that maybe Dewey is bad news after all.
But like, the thing is, I would like to give Dominic more credit than that, because it really does seem like, Dominic is going to turn face because he is personally offended by Dewey ignoring him and treating the girl that he cares about much like shit, but he doesn't care that Dewey is a fascist dictator who wants to destroy the world. And I don't know, I think Dominic is a more nuanced character than that. Like, I think he would still have his doubts regarding what Dewey does, even if Dewey had kept him by his side this entire time.
And Dominic has clearly shown revulsion at things like the deliberate slaughter of the civilians in the cities that they've struck with the anti-Corellian weapon.
Right, we didn't even get into it much in that was I for that episode? Well, whatever, like the episode where, yes, they you deploy Orange, right, where Dominic is clearly very disturbed by what is going on.
Yes, and I think Dominic's journey is about being somebody who was, in a very classic fascism move, was captured by the dream of, a better world, a world of order, a world of control of civilization, who gradually the curtain has been peeled back to reveal, actually this was all this was all a lie,
I mean, honestly, I even think, like, because we've talked about this before, right? How Dominic is basically like a trust fund baby who probably comes from a very privileged background and was given like a high-ranking military function, basically based only on who he is rather than what he can do. Right. So it's almost as if he like never knew anything else. This is the system. This is how things are meant to be, and I play my role in it because, I don't know, noblesse oblige, because of the privilege of my birth, I get to be a part of this. And now he starts to get, he took shrooms once, and now he realizes that other people are human beings too.
It all comes back to hallucinogenic substances.
Yeah.
I mean, the key thing which both Dominic and Renton have represented naivete at the beginning of their journeys, right? And they have both grown in different ways by being exposed to the realities of the world. But whereas Renton, has been supported and guided mostly by the people he has encountered, Dominic is increasingly the only voice crying out in a circle of madmen, sycophants, and nut jobs, right? So it's about them being, in that sense, we talked a lot in the episode where they met about how Dominic and Renton were mirrors of each other, and they've continued to be that, in the sense that they are both learning harsh lessons about life, but one of them is dealing with it considerably better than the other, let's say.
Oh yeah.
They are both redeemed by simping after a weird alien girl.
Truly the one thing which unites us all. Okay, well, I think that about does it for this episode then. Like I said at the beginning, these two episodes are kind of different stylistically, but have a surprising amount to connect them there. And next time we're going to be looking at episode 37, Raise Your Hand, and episode 38, Date of Birth. Before I wrap up, anything else you guys wanted to say about these two episodes as a whole?
Shout out to Axel Thurston making Holland's life miserable since day one.
Yes.
Oh yeah. I was gonna say that bit's great, right? Where
Axel Thurston,
Holland,
ultimate cock blocker.
right? Holland keeps trying to call Diane, and Axel keeps intervening. It's very good, extremely good. He puts on the fake voice for the second call. He was like, "That number is no longer in."
Axel Thurston, the true MVP of.
Yes.
That's the difference, right? When we first watched this show, we related to Renton. Now we're old and grumpy and decrepit. We relate to Axel.
Yes. Also, shout outs to I was quite charmed by the bit where Eureka is like doing research on all the women of the Gecko State. Just
yes, and she goes gremlin mode.
Yeah, just like wordlessly walking up with a notepad, writing something down, and then
Also, I guess Dr. Bear and Misha just kind of hooked up again, huh?
They're happy to work together again.
I guess,
say.
yeah.
Misha is definitely. I mean, she's definitely shown some spikiness towards him, but I think they're cooperating for the sake of the mission. Let's say. I
don't know. She seemed pretty comfortable in his lab.
Fair. Maybe they're going to rekindle it. Maybe those two crazy kids are going to make it in this world again. All right. Well, like I said, that's the end of another episode of Blue Mondays. If you enjoyed this episode, give us a like, leave us a comment, let us know what you think. Let us know if there will be any more future scenes in bathrooms. We want to get your hot bathroom-related takes. Can you be more emotionally honest when you're in the nude with other men? That's the question that's on all of our lips. In the meantime, you can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Music, Spotify, Amazon Music, Podbean, Stitcher, and on YouTube, of course. Check us out. Let us know what's on your minds, and we will see you next time.